Proverbs 5 and verse 8. It says, "Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house." So Solomon is still instructing us here about the strange woman and telling us how to steer clear of her. So let's look at the first part of the verse. Remove thy way far from her. Fornication is a interesting sin. It's a kind of a sin that's in a class all of its own, and there's a few in there with it, but it's different than many others. It's one of the few sins in the Bible that we're told to flee. If you look in 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 18, there's only a few of them. There's fornication, there's idolatry, there's the love of money. Right, we're told in at least of those three to flee those things. 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 18 says, "Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body." You see how there's something different about this sin. Every other sin's outside the body. This one you sin against your own body. Matthew Henry said in his commentary on this verse, 1 Corinthians 6:18, he said, "Other vices may be conquered in fight, this only by flight." And I thought that was pretty pithy of Mr. Henry. Now, as Solomon taught in chapter 4, in order to keep ourselves from sin, we must enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men, Proverbs 4:14, and avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass away, Proverbs 4:15. You'll remember when we went over those verses here a while back. So you want to first keep away from it, enter not into that path, go not in the way of evil men, and then if you get in that path, then avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it. So first of all, avoid it. Secondly, pass not by it, don't even get near it. Thirdly, turn from it if you do get near it. And then fourthly, pass away if you're there. You turn around and go the other way. And you'll remember what I said about that earlier. So he says, remove thy way far from her. I want to look at that remove. If we must remove our way from her, that tells us something about where we are. To remove means to move or shift from or out of the place occupied, to lift or push aside, to lift up and take away, to take off, to take away, withdraw from a place, person, etc., to raise, abandon, a siege. Also reflectively, like remove thy way, that's how it's used here when the object is yourself, to betake oneself away, to take or convey away from a place, to keep apart, separate. Also removed means taken away by death. Okay, so yeah, if you don't remove thy way from her, you'll be removed in that way. You'll be taken away from death. You'll have the coroner or the undertaker remove you. And we talked about that, and we'll probably talk about that some more in studies after this. So the use of the word remove implies that we will eventually end up in the presence of a strange woman. That's what it means to remove thy way. So it means you're already there, and you better get yourself out of there. And chances are, every one of us will end up in the presence of a strange woman someday, because she's everywhere. She's at work, she's at school, she's, God forbid, at church. I mean, Jezebel had a sex club going in Revelation chapter 3. Right? I mean, they're strange women are everywhere. You go to the mall, you go to anywhere. Right? You'll come across them. Or you'll come across them digitally on the internet. That's all too ubiquitous these days. So this tells us that we're going to end up in her presence, and here's what you do when you find yourself there. Get out. Remove thyself. Betake oneself away. So when we find that our path has crossed hers, we must quickly get away from her. And as soon as you realize that you're in the presence of an unchaste woman, flee immediately. This is not somebody you want to talk with, get to know, flirt with, or anything. Stay away. Excuse yourself. Pass away, like Solomon said. He said in Proverbs 4 and verse 27, if you'll remember, he said to turn not to the right hand, nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. And then he says, remove thy way far from her. I want to milk it for everything I can get. Far from her. So it's not enough to stay at an arm's length away from her either. We must stay a great distance away from her. Far means at a great distance, a long way off. So yeah, you can't stay far enough away If you have a group of friends and you spend time hanging out with people, and one of them happens to be a strange woman, well, you know what? Just get away from the whole group. It's not enough to just stand on the outside and talk to somebody else. Just get away. Get far away from her. You don't want the temptation. The closer a man gets in physical proximity to a strange woman, the more likely he is to be enticed by her. And then the second part of the verse. And come not nigh the door of her house. So better than fleeing and after having crossed paths with a strange woman is avoiding her altogether to prevent interaction in the first place. So the first part, remove thy way far from her, that's if you've already gotten there. But you can even do better than that. Come not nigh the door of her house. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't even get where you could be close to her. You want to avoid and pass not by the dwelling of the strange woman. You could understand this figuratively, or you could understand this literally, and it is to be understood literally, but you can apply it figuratively as well. We're told in 2 Timothy 2 and verse 22 to flee youthful lusts. 2 Timothy 2:22. Second Timothy 2:22, flee also youthful lusts, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace, with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. Now, I think a lot of people read that and they probably think of the lusts of youth, right? The lust whenever you're a young person, when you're a teenager, and that's true, flee those too. But youthful here is an adjective. Flee also youthful lusts, the lusts that are in their youth. When the lust first presents itself to you, flee it at that time. Right? So as soon as you have that temptation, flee it. Tell yourself, no, stop. Get out of the situation. Hit the back button on the internet. Whatever you're doing, get out of there. Flee it. Don't allow that thought to continue to fester in your mind. Deny the temptation to go near her as soon as it enters into your mind. Go not near the door of her house. Now, like I said, this verse can be used in principle to not go near a strange woman wherever she may be, but it also should be heeded in the primary application, which is to stay away from her actual house. And this is really important. And probably for younger people it's more important, but for older people it's important too. Because there's plenty of guys out there that have run around on their wives and gone to the house of the strange woman, that have ruined their marriages and destroyed their families. If the young man in Proverbs chapter 7 had heeded wisdom's warning and went not the way to the strange woman's house, he would have avoided being taken by her. Let's look at Proverbs 7 and verse 8. This was his first mistake. He didn't listen to Solomon, assuming Solomon was speaking to him. I don't know if this young man ever heard Solomon's words, but had he listened to what Solomon said in chapter 5, remove thy way far from her, go not nigh the door of her house, he would have spared himself. Proverbs 7 and verse 8 says, this is Solomon's beholding this. He's looking out his window and he's seeing this thing transpire here. Passing through the street near her corner, he went the way to her house. That's just a stupid move. It's just stay away. If you happen to find yourself in a city, stay away from the red light zone, red light district. Right? There's certain parts of cities where you just don't go. The whole street is just filled full of strip clubs. Just don't go. Stay far away from that. But he didn't, and he ended up being taken by her. Verses 22 and 23. He goeth after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, till a dart strike through his liver. As a bird hasteth to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. The reason you want to stay away from her house is because her house is the way to hell. Verse 27, Proverbs 7:27. Her house is the way to hell, going down the chambers of death. So hopefully you never get in this situation, but if you ever do, and you go to a strange woman's house, and you go to open that door, you remember that verse. You just imagine opening that door to an inferno, and you are stepping into hell. Just remember that.
One more thing, too. If a woman like that finds out that you're trying to avoid her, that just make her more apt to try to get you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. She hunteth the precious life, it says.
6:26.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the adulteress will hunt for the precious life.
Yeah. There are a lot of young settlers falling and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time in the military.
Yeah.
And I remember being in Germany, and these guys, I was just aghast. I couldn't believe what they were doing. And they went to the red light district, and these guys are married. A lot of them are married. They were laughing about it, joking about it. Some of them even said their wives wouldn't care. And maybe that was the case. I don't know. They had some weird open marriage or something, but I was just disgusted by it. I just couldn't believe it. And it wasn't like we were over there for 10 years. We were over there for like 3 weeks. Right? Just unbelievable. So if a married woman ever invites you into her house when her husband isn't home, be very cautious. Just, you know what? Don't do it. Unless there's some really good reason to or something. I mean, if she's 40 years older than you are or something, then you probably don't have anything to worry about. But be very, very cautious because, there are bad women out there, especially if you're a delivery guy. I've been told that there are women out there that just love to snag a delivery guy and have a fling, and I'm going to be really careful about that.
I had that one time happen in the trash shop. I told you about it.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Went in to pick up almost a half a house of furniture. I got about halfway through, and she came out basically with hardly anything on. I wanted to come inside, have some Coke and some coffee.
Wow. And you were a garbage man at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The garbage truck.
Yeah. Wow. If a single woman ever invites you into her house when there's nobody else there, be very cautious. Right? Just be very, very wary of that. And be very cautious about spending time in your girlfriend's house when no one else is home. That doesn't apply to anybody here, but anybody that's hearing this, any young person, don't spend time in your girlfriend's house when the two of you are all alone. You're just setting yourself up for disaster. So that takes care